Hello, retro fans. You may have recognized already that in the past days or weeks, I have streamed SID music more or less occasionally. And this is actually a project I'm sort of, fascinated, and I really want to push this to a certain, let's say, level or extent. I don't know how to describe this in the best way. And the interesting thing, that's something I have never intended to do. That's actually something I just came up with while exploring the WIC functionality. And the WIC Wi-Fi modem, you may have seen the video, and if not, I'm going to link this here probably. Comes with a feature called SID Radio, and the SID Radio actually gets SIDs from the High Voltage Sid Collection, plays them on your C64, and it does so randomly and it does so continuously without any interaction. And for me at least, it's the very first program on the C64 that is doing something like this. All the other players I have tested or used in the past are requiring some sort of human interaction. So you have to skip to the next song, you have to pick the next song, you have the songs being available on some sort of a media. And for me, this is some sort of cumbersome because I like to start things and let them run in the background just to have some, let's say, entertainment or something like this. And especially talking about SIDs, I mean, if you have a look at the High Voltage Sid Collection, there are thousands of files, and many of those are for, or let's say, coming from games. So they contain a lot of subtunes, and those subtunes are not essentially music. They may be just some sounds or melodies used in the game. And if you talk about title music or something like this, this is not necessarily the first song of a SID file. And this makes listening to SIDs in, let's say, this I want to hear something I haven't heard before manner a little bit complicated. So, and I was in contact with the SID64 creator a couple of years ago, many years ago. And this is actually a Windows SID player that utilizes the hard SID as an external USB sound device, where you can place real SID chips into it, and then you can play SID music over real SIDs. And he was working on some sort of playlist functionality, but this never really reached a, let's say, level that makes it comparable with Winamp, for example. And long story short, I got a little bit lost in this project, as you may have discovered already. And I just want to give you a brief update where I am right now and what issues I'm still trying to solve, and where we can end up anytime soon or later, I don't know. So let's jump directly into the topic. So, and as usual, let's start with a view on my desk, because this is going to look a little bit funny, because this is actually almost everything I have used for this project so far. And you may have seen in WIC64 video that I started to use the Ultimate 2 Plus as my main source for getting programs for the WIC64 Wi-Fi modem. But while working on this topic, I came across this, oh, that's That's a frozen face, interesting. So thanks NVIDIA for messing up my camera again. I don't know why I'm facing this every time I'm doing a video and not when I'm testing all that stuff. So let's jump to the direct video stream. So we're probably going to face this a couple of times today because usually I'm using this NVIDIA broadcast software to get some effects on my video picture, like blurring the background and all that things. And well, every now and then it stops working, and actually it was right now. And yep, so coming back to the topic, as I said, while exploring the WIC64 Wi-Fi modem functionality, I came across this little application called SID Radio, and this really caught my attention. And you may have seen some of the earlier streams I have done with this, and I have used my main PC for this, and that's probably a lot of overkill to do something simple like streaming a PAL picture plus sound to the internet. So, and this machine is not really environmental friendly. It's consuming a lot of power due to its components. So I was thinking about how to improve this, and I was actually facing a couple of issues. So the first issue, as I said, was this huge machine, and I was trying to get rid of this in the first step. And so I was browsing the internet and thought, well, for the Arduino, not the Arduino, for the Raspberry Pi, there are a couple of Linux distributions, and I thought, well, OBS is running on Linux, so let's see whether we can get this attached to the C64 and stream the video to the internet. But I had to learn that especially the Raspberry Pi 3 is way underpowered for this project, and it is constantly complaining about low voltage if you use a cable longer than 20 centimeters or something like this. That's pretty annoying. Even with the original Raspberry Pi power supply, I had this issue almost all of the time. And as I said, it is way underpowered. And the thing is actually, it's probably not really an issue of the Raspberry Pi. I think it is more an issue of the capture device I'm using. And this is actually an older USB device. So let's see what happens if I'm going to disconnect this. Anyway, just can't restart the whole machine. And this is an old USB capture device with composite video as well as YC/S video input plus audio. And I thought that's going to be a very good idea to use for streaming, because converting an analog signal into HDMI and using an HDMI to USB capture is probably a bit of overkill for the purpose of streaming music. I mean, the main focus is actually the music, and the picture is just there to see what type of tune, or what's the name of the tune and what's the name of the artist, for example. But it looks like that this USB device isn't doing anything, let's say, in terms of video compression or something like this. So it creates some sort of a raw data stream, and the application you're going to use has to take this stream and convert this into something that's streamable to YouTube, for example. And this was actually too much for the Raspberry Pi 3, at least, because I think it has no hardware accelerated X264 codec functionality. And so I quickly had to give up this project, and anyway, it was overheating most of the time as well, so that wasn't really something I was looking into. So I was thinking about what else I can use for this project. So I was considering an older laptop I have here on my desk, and Then at work I came across a box of old thin clients. And I thought, yes, there are many tiny PCs out there, and probably that's something we can use for the streaming project. And I'm just a bit occupied because something happened that's not happened too often. So let me check if this is going to do what it is supposed to do. I'm jumping between topics. I'm sorry for this one. So yep, it has worked. And I'm going to explain what has worked in a minute. I was just a bit fascinated that it has worked actually. So yeah, coming back to the thin client / tiny PC. And I was chatting with my friend Olbi about this topic, and he had an old Acer Veriton in his box. And so he was kind enough to set this up with a tiny or with a small Linux distribution. And this is how this whole thing looks like. It has an Intel Atom inside and an NVIDIA Ion chipset. So it sounds not too bad for this whole project. And yep, so he has prepared this whole thing, and it was actually kind of working out of the box. So I got this hook up to my internet connection, connected my USB grabber, and installed OBS. And OBS was starting, OBS was seeing the capture device, the video part of it, but no sound. And this kind of placed me on a very curvy, stony path, discovering the sound concept of Linux. And I really have to admit, I haven't made any progress so far. I really don't understand why there are so many different systems like Pulse, like Ulsa and Jack and whatever they called, and why you are required to have actually all of them to get something to work. But if you have all of them, then they interfere each other and they really block each other. And if you do not have Ulsa on your Linux, you do not have the sound in OBS. And if you do not have Pulse, then you can hear anything on coming out of OBS, and that's pretty confusing. And I think I messed up a couple of things, and I had to uninstall and install many packages and all that things, all doing with this console text typing, very nerdish approach. But actually that wasn't really what I was looking for, because I was more, let's say, result driven and not interested in the way to get there. Anyway, so I had really a very hard time over the last days. So I have just spent one and a half hour per day in the evening trying to get this to work. And yeah, I'm still not 100% satisfied, because I still discover or still, well, experience occasional sound stutter. So there's actually some sync issue, and the problem is that I can't monitor what the streaming box is doing actually, because as soon as I open OBS, or as soon as OBS is not minimized, let's put it like this, I'm having the problem that that whole thing is actually kind of deteriorating quite quickly. And let's just have a quick look at that whole thing. So here you can see, the picture's a little bit squeezed, but I think that's okay. This is actually the distribution I'm using right now, and most of the time I'm mixing up the keyboards I'm using. And here OBS is running, and actually it is That because I have removed the USB device while it was running. So let's just, yep, cancel this. And let's try whether we can just restart this. And if we can bring it back to life. Yep, there it is. We got at least some sound, but we're not seeing anything at all because, let me think. Nope, we should see something. We might have to reboot the Linux system. And yep. And the next issue I was facing with this whole Linux thing is this user concept. So on the one side, everything needs to be installed as root, but on the other side, you are not, well, it is not recommended to use the system as root. So, and basically you create another user and then you're trying to get all that stuff you have installed as root working under this user. And especially with this whole sound thing, I was facing constant issues that either the user I have created or root wasn't able to access the audio devices, and then I had to change a couple of things, and I really lost track of what I have tried so far. And at a certain point, it has started to work sort of, but it still needs some fine-tuning. And yep, here we are back. And this is actually how it looks like. So I got actually just two devices, the video capture device and the audio capture device. And I'm getting this quite nice looking picture from this capture device. So I'm using the S-Video part, and it runs in PAL, and I got this CPU usage under 100%. So at the beginning of my whole journey, I think I was missing a couple of codecs, which I had to install as well. And I had to install VLC because it comes with a package of codecs. And don't ask me details about that one. But at a certain point, the CPU usage dropped drastically, and this whole system became sort of usable. But as I said, as soon as I have this in preview mode, which would be quite nice to have a look at it every now and then, it starts to stutter. So there's actually really some sort of a sync issue with sound/video. I have changed the video output of this Acer PC to 50 Hz so that it fits into the PAL frequency as well. But anyway, it isn't working as good as I want to have this. But if I minimize this and let this run in the background, then I have some stutter, I think, let's say 2 or 3 per minute or something like this, which is not perfect. It's not where I want to have it, but it's actually quite okay-ish. So, enough chatting about this streaming PC and Linux and all the issues related to that. I'm actually in contact at Twitter with a guy who is very supportive about this whole topic. He has provided me a lot of sources and information where I have to look at, and I may have to test a different video to USB capture device because mine seems to be pretty outdated, and it looks like there's a newer one with a different chipset that might work a little bit better. So I have to see where I can get this ordered, and if this is going to solve some of my some of my problems, I was going to say. And therefore, a lot of thanks to Jochen on Twitter for helping me with all that stuff. And now it's about time to come back to the C64 part. So let's switch back to the C64 for a while. Just have to switch my video input. Here we go. And there was actually another problem I have to tackle. And this is related to that this whole topic of the WIC/SID radio is still under development. And I jumped on the bandwagon perhaps a little bit too early, but well, it is like this. And I'm actually in contact with Kiwi, as it is called. This is the developer of the WIC64, and with InsertDisc, which is the developer of the SID Radio application. And we are kind of trying to figure out a couple of ways in which manner we can develop this whole thing, or if we improve this whole thing. And the main idea I had was that I'd like to switch on the C64 and it should boot into the SID radio automatically without any interaction. And this is actually a little bit tricky with the Ultimate 2 Plus. There is a WIC64 kernel, which sort of offers this functionality, but still not to an extent where I was actually going to. So, and Kiwi was kind enough to send me a small program which I was able to place on my mini flash. And that's actually the reason. Let's jump back to the desk. Here we go. And yep, that's the mini flash. And the purpose of the mini flash is that you can load a program from SD to IC, from a real floppy drive, from whatever, from a Pi 1541, for example, and flash this to the cartridge. And as soon as you power on your C64, reset your C64, this program is loaded automatically. So, and actually he has sent me this little tool. And if we're going to reset the C64, we can see that it is loading this program. And this little program is loading the SID radio application from the internet, from the WIC64 server. So every time they implemented some updates, I will get them automatically. So I do not have to download or check the version of the SID radio day by day and place them on this mini flash, because I got this launcher which is doing this automatically. So, and this was actually one of the problems I was looking to solve. And I think we found a very, very nice solution for this. And then there was actually another problem we had to tackle. And this was that every now and then, I haven't figured out when, but every now and then the SID radio gets stuck by loading a SID tune. So I'm actually not sure whether this is related to the SID tune itself, because when it is doing so, you can't see the next tune. So it's just blank and it gets stuck there. And I want to have something that runs unattendedly, something like this. So, and I want to have something that works even if I'm not here. So my idea, or my final goal, whatever we want to call this, is having a 24/7 SID radio stream on YouTube. And I do not have to interfere every now and then. Especially yesterday, I had a 12-hour stream running, and I went to my new flat because I'm going to move. That's the reason why it is so empty behind me, actually, because most of the stuff is already boxed. Not most of the stuff. A lot of stuff is already boxed. And well, I was just there for a couple of minutes and the stream stopped because the application got stuck by loading the SID file. And I thought, okay, then I take my mobile phone and stop the stream remotely. But I learned that this isn't possible with the YouTube Studio app on Android. And I couldn't get to the browser page either, because I had to kind of identify myself. And you cannot use the same device you're trying to log into Google to identify yourself, because this identification request is sent to other devices, and they weren't in reach. So that was really a problem I had to address. And my first idea was, wow, so many chatting, I'm quite impressed. My first idea was to monitor the audio signal because, well, if there isn't something playing, then the audio signal changes, the audio level changes. And so I came up with the idea, let's take an Arduino Nano, take the analog in and just monitor the audio signal. So, and unfortunately, I'm not that much into audio / electronics / levels / measuring all that things. Long story short, this approach has failed. I wasn't able to distinguish whether there is some music playing or not. I might have to change the audio signal to DC. I may have to offset this. I may have to measure the min-max levels and compare this to whatever signal I have in mind. I tried an external potentiometer to set the threshold, and actually nothing has really worked. And the issue is that the audio coming out of the C64 is not a very exact AC signal. So you do not have if there's nothing playing, you do not have 0 volt. You always have a sort of offset. You always have a sort of noise coming from the system. And if you start to play music, then this min-max AC signal just kind of wanders around this DC offset. And this makes it a little bit tricky to really measure the signal without influencing the sound I was going to record. So I assume I have to sort of use some rectifiers and some capacitors to and maybe some opto couplers as well to really make a clear how to say that maybe to create some separation between the system playing the music and the system monitoring the music. And so I was looking for a different way. And my idea was that as soon as the SID radio gets stuck, it is not sending any data to the SID anymore. And this is something I can use. So I went through a couple of pins on the SID socket, and the first thing was read-write, for example, and the second was chip select. And we can have a look at this here right now. So now we can see SID radio is playing, and the blue signal we can see in the oscilloscope is actually chip select. And chip select is a low active signal, and as soon as the SID gets the signal that it's turn to get data from the memory, it gets this low signal on the chip select line. And as you can see, we have a couple of those within a certain time span. And this is actually a link to the screen refresh. So therefore we have this constant pattern, so to say. And as soon as the SID radio gets stuck, and it's probably not going to be something we can simulate, but you can see if I'm going to change the titles, there's a short moment where we do not have any chip select signals. And the same happens when the whole application gets stuck. And this may happen within the next 5 tunes, this may happen within the next 100 tunes. I wasn't able to record this because I just had one occurrence this over the day today when I was still in test mode. And the another one I have missed because that was at the beginning of the video. But the thing I came up with is that I'm actually monitoring this chip select signal, and the Arduino is doing nothing else than using a counter, an internal counter, and actually is waiting for this chip select signal to go down to a low level, and then the counter gets reset. And if this isn't happen within the next 20 seconds or something like this, then it is causing a reset to the C64. And this is actually the whole thing we can see here right now. So if we ignoring this kernel switcher, and if we ignoring this rat's nest around my FPGA SID, there are actually two important lines. This is actually the chip select line I have soldered to my mixed SID replacement FPGA adapter. And the other one is this greenish one, which is connected to the user port, the reset line. And as I said, as soon as this chip select signal is missing for about 20 seconds, then the Arduino is initiating a reset, resetting the counter and all that things. And actually, this is how it is working right now. So if I'm going to start a stream and if I'm not around my C64 and that whole system gets stuck, then we are going to see a reset of the C64, and we probably can kind of emulate this as well. So if I just remove this line, so now we are low, it's quite okay-ish. And if I'm going to use this cable and set this to high, and then if you wait a couple of seconds, pretending that the FPGA SID isn't getting any data yet, then we will have a very short moment where we can see the LED here and actually seeing the yellow line dropping down for a short moment. And it happened right now. And then the C64 is making this reset, and it is loading the SID radio from the internet. So let's reconnect this, bring it back to the state I have intended. And as soon as the SID radio has started, I think I pressed some buttons occasionally or accidentally of this WIC modem, because there are two buttons and I think I pressed one by inserting the cable. Now we have to get the nano out of the reset routine, but it should happen as soon as the radio has started. Or I think I have messed up something by pressing the buttons. Or what it is doing a reset. And the LED should turn off right now. So let's restart the system. I think I really messed up something. And yeah, the Arduino is powered over the tape port, so everything is actually, yep, now we are back to business. Everything is powered by one power supply. So, and this is actually the whole thing I have worked on, and I'm still trying to get this, let's say, in a more compact form. Actually, I'm considering switching to a different board, because on the one side I want to free up this C64 for the purpose I have created it, playing games, demos, all that stuff. And the next thing I have in mind is that for a 24/7 project, it's probably not the best idea to have all those original ICs in well, let's say under power all of the time. So what I'm thinking about is switching to an reloaded board, for example, or perhaps I'm going to use an Ultimate 64 board or something like this to reduce the amount of original ICs as much as possible, or at least bring it to a level where replacements are available, so to say. that's probably, not probably, that's actually one of the main reasons I'm using an FPGA SID, because SID ICs are getting rare and I don't want to waste them playing SID tunes all of the day. And the next thing is that I'm using the FPGA SID in pseudo stereo mode. So at least for me, it sounds more pleasant than having it straight mono all of the time. And on my PC setup, I have installed some VST plugins to have a very small amount of reverb, and I have a mixer plugin to place the left and right channel a little bit more to the middle. Now it is really straight right, straight left, and this sounds sometimes a little bit demanding when you're using earphones or something like this. I haven't figured out how to do this on Linux, but as long as I'm discovering, or as long as I'm actually experiencing this sync/stutter issues, I think it's not a good idea to add even more to this whole system. So I really have to get this sorted, and then I'm going to dig into this VST effect plugin, whatever thing, and then we are going to get the same, let's say, quality/experience as we've had in the very first streams I have done with this. So yeah, and obviously for 24/7 it can't stay like this. We really have to get this into a more compact, more robust format, and therefore that's something I'm really working on. I mean, basically we could do this all with emulation. So I mean, using this tiny PC and running a C64 emulator on it would be probably the most easy and most efficient way, but it is sort of lacking the spirit of doing it at all. And I really like the idea of having a C64, real C64, whatever real means. Anyway, doing all of this work with some additional help added to the whole system. So yeah, I think I have mentioned everybody who is actually involved in this project, who is helping me with this project. If not, I'm very sorry. I'm really bad at remembering names and things like this. So it's not a bad intention. And I'm very thankful for everybody who has supported me with this here actually, and supported me on my channel. Big thanks to Adam as well. And yeah, that's actually the state of that whole thing. I will go quiet for a couple of days, hopefully not weeks, because as I said, I'm going to move to a new flat. German Telecom has promised to move my internet connection to the new flat. I haven't received the devices required, so I really have to hunt down where they are right now. So I might face some offline days during the next week, but I hope this is not going to last too long. And as soon as I have moved all the stuff into the flat and have reset up my whole desk and working environment and so on, I will keep working on this one. And I have seen another suggestions on Twitter using a different Linux distribution. That's something I may have to test as well to make this whole audio thing a little bit less obscure, so to say, and probably making some progress there. So if you have any ideas, suggestions, wishes whatsoever, feel free to express yourself in the comment section. I'm really looking forward to this one. And as I said, many thanks to all of the supporters here. And if you consider to do something like this, then feel free to join channel membership or go over to Patreon or do whatever you feel comfortable with. And that's all for this episode. And then thanks for watching and see you for the next episode. Bye bye.